Why we have not defeated Boko Haram, according to President Goodluck Jonathan. There are two riders there. Says Nigerians defeated Ebola through unity. And another rider says 300 Boko Haram members surrender in Cameroon. That's the lead story on the front page of Vanguard. Also on the front page, just below the nameplate, there's a kicker there, 2015. Buhari and Atiku clash over procedure for presidential primaries. Details to be found on page 8. And also a story that has been running for some time now, at least since last week. Another kicker there, just below the riders to Vanguard's lead story. NLC housing scam. Developer blames labor leaders. Details to be found on page 7. And then below the front page photograph, the front page photograph, of course, is taken from the interdenominational service that took place yesterday in the Federal Capital Territory. That you have 3 boxes there promoting. Federal government floats 213 billion naira lifeline for GENCOs. GENCOs, of course, means the power generating companies. And Ekiti, tension as police make mass arrest, page 10. And unease as Benue sells off 30 million shares in Dangote Cement. And also on the front page of the Nation newspaper, we have the lead story there. Of course, the front page photograph of the Nation is taken from yesterday's service. The lead story on the front page of the Nation says, NJC, that's the National Judicial Council, probes Pro-Fayose thugs attacks on judges. And 2 riders there. Tension in Ado Ekiti and CNPP Sans Saraki, others worried. And of course, also on the front page of the photograph there, one is business and the other, of course, is an obituary. IGI CEO Olowude dies at 63. Fashola and Aregbesola mourn. It's the first paragraph there says, a chapter was closed in insurance yesterday with the death of the Executive Vice Chairman and CEO of Industrial and General Insurance Company, Mr. Remi Olowode. He was 63. He was said to have died of prostate cancer in the United States. And also on the front page there is unease as Benue offloads shares in Dangote Cement. And the writer says, opposition demands explanation from government. And also on the front page there, we have found, that's called found Chibok girl relocated, and APC flees dirty politics. Synagogue, bodies release to wait. That's the release of bodies to wait. And Martins is said to have scored a goal in the MLS, that's the US Soccer League. And states freeze ECA savings, SS code account savings. That's on the front page. Claire, let me just take the Guardian quickly and then I come back to you. On the front page of the Guardian, of course, again, is a photograph from yesterday's interdenominational service at the National Ecumenical Center. Jonathan urges unity to overcome Boko Haram, others. The writer says, according to the writer, says, that's President Jonathan, 1914 amalgamation was divine. And the news notes on the front page of the Guardian, IGI boss Olowude dies at 63. And SON, that's Standards Organization of Nigeria, begins enforcement of cement sterilization policy. Details on page 2. And to be found also on page 6, but promoted on the front page there, is stakeholders ask Yero, that's the governor of Kaduna State, to end killings of Christians and farmers. Claire?
Okay, Kingsley, let's again move on to the Nigerian pilot. And the Nigerian pilot is leading with a story, Jonathan to form new cabinet. And details are on page 4. It has a writer there, Maku Wogu, Wike, others set to resign. And there's another caption, Northern governors to ACF, don't politicize Boko Haram. Details are on page 4. And the picture story of President Goodluck Jonathan and First Lady Patience Jonathan at the 54th Independence Day Interdenominational Church Service in Abuja. And that's it there. Just below the masthead again, if the camera can tilt just above the picture story, below the masthead, 3 or 5 Nigerians received national honors today. It's on page 6, details. And Nigeria at 54. We will overcome our challenges, coming from President Goodluck Jonathan. Details are on page 6. And there are other trending stories at the foot of the Nigerian pilots. The Union is the next paper, and the Union, again, it's leading with a picture story of the interdenominational church service held yesterday. And there you have a picture story of all the dignitaries, the former head of interim national government, Chief Ernest Shonekan, former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, and Deputy Senate President, President Goodluck Jonathan, and his wife, at that picture inside there. Now, a leading story on the front page, APC thugs set to invade Ekiti. That's coming from PDP. It has a rider there, police on red alert. Other trending stories at the foot of the paper is there. And then just on the right-hand column, we must unite to defeat our enemies, coming from President Goodluck Jonathan. It's right there in the right column. Just go above the masthead. Excess reserves, a high debtor borrowers, dim banks' fourth quarter prospects. Details are on page 23. And I'd just like to go to the inside page now, and precisely on page 5. And page 5 has an interesting story, and it's on Ebola. Lagos begins clampdown on erring private schools. Private school owners kick, demand federal government's intervention. Details are on page 5. Lagos begins clampdown on erring private schools, and that's an update on Ebola. Private school owners kick, demand federal government's intervention. Delivery of passports to homes, Honorable Minister of Interior not involved. It's also trending there. And of course, details of the story on the front page. We must unite to defeat our enemies, coming from President Goodluck Jonathan. And on pages 6 and 7, we have other trending stories there. And on page 6, we have Rep denies party interest ahead of $9.3 million cash for arms motion. Rep denies party interest ahead of $9.3 million cash for arms motion. It's on page 6. And of course, on page 7, TAN receives 2.396 million signatures for Jonathan in Northwest. It's on page 7, that story. And of course, there are other trending stories on that page.
Claire,
now, that's
let
the
me just
Union.
take this one very quickly. So that we just,
the Union,
yes,
and
you have
Kingsley.
another one.
Yes.
Yeah, Claire, I just think before we go over to Bio for a discussion of the various headlines, let me just take the Daily Sun and also Daily News Watch, just the headlines. The lead story on the front page of Daily Sun says, Chibok girls, grand protest on October 1. And there are 2 riders there. Campaigners plot anti-Jonathan rally in Abuja on Wednesday. And then recruit South governor, senators, and representatives. Find out the details on page 6. Also on the front page of the Daily Sun, a story that says Adamawa governorship, that's Guba. That's a shorthand for the governorship election. Atiku leads APC campaign. Details on page 54. And also on the front page, Boko Haram, just below the photograph on the Boko Haram, that's the kicker. More soldiers face trial. And the writer says, Army sets up another court-martial over war desertion. Details on page 10. And Dangote Cement, Benue citizens kick over sale of 30 million shares. And also very quickly from the Daily News Watch, I'll take the lead story. Boko Haram suffers another crushing defeat in Konduga. 100 insurgents killed, armored tank and APCs seized. 15 soldiers also dead. Northern governors fought ACF's accusation. And also on the front page there, that's the promotional stories below the photograph, oil-bearing states governors to tackle NDDC's poor funding. And Alibaba.com seeks to invest in Nigeria and others. Just by the way, Alibaba is not a comedian, you know. Alibaba is a Chinese company. Page 2, it was listed on the New York Stock Exchange last week, and it was a runaway success. FG engages 52,000 workers on Abuja Great Green Wall. Abuja Great Green Wall, that's, I would say, that's the Great Green Wall is actually in the Sahelian region, and Abuja is not anywhere near that region. At Independence Church service on the front page, Jonathan appeals for unity. And Hajj, that's on top of the paper, the front page there, protesting Adamawa intending pilgrims, ground plane, and government condemns action.
Just to take along with you, the Blueprint is also carrying a story on the Chibok girls, but its own version is captioned, Jonathan playing politics with Chibok girls just released, and that's attributed to the APC. Details are on page 6. It's a lead story on the front page of the Blueprint, and there is a trending story at the bottom there. It's on $9.3 million. Lai Mohammed ignorant of our rules. That's coming from House of Reps. Details are on page 6. And let's go to Mr. Atoyebe before I take the last two final papers.
Thank you very much. Well, as the nation is gearing up for the activities marking the 54th independent anniversary, the call has been made again for a need for unity so that we can overcome our challenges. Instructively, by Thursday, while people were preparing for the Friday prayers and Sunday prayers, there was also an attack by insurgents at Konduga. Luckily, about 100 insurgents are reportedly killed. We also lost some soldiers, but that lasted through Thursday up to Saturday, and Konduga is still within the control of Nigerian troops. The issue related to that is the Chibok girl that was abandoned, who was taken to the police clinic in Yola. She was moved to a referral hospital and eventually is reported to have been moved for better health care in Abuja. However, some representative of the people from Chibok are reporting that the vice principal as well as the parent rushed to Yola, but they were unable to meet the girl. Apparently, the girl is in hospital. She's still struggling to recover, is a little bit incoherent, and there are appeals that maybe seeing the parents could also help the girl in the process of recovery. Related to that, again, is the call by the Director General of the World Health Organization for the feat that Nigeria made in defeating Ebola. They are seeking Nigeria's assistance to provide personnel and know-how to support Liberia and Sierra Leone in the fight against Ebola. Over the weekend,
yes. Before you proceed with that, I mean, that story was repeated over the weekend, and I heard that. My concern was Nigeria already has the Technical Aid Corps program, and we cannot assume that we have enough doctors to serve 160 or 170 million old persons in this country. What is the point, therefore, in exposing us, exposing our medical personnel to the hazards of Ebola elsewhere on the country, elsewhere, you know, in the sub-region? Yes, we have achieved a feat in defeating Ebola in Nigeria, but I think my opinion is that the Technical Aid Corps suffices for whatever we are doing in terms of assistance.
Well, Technical Aid Corps has varieties of services they provide, and I think the World Health Organization is probably latching on the success of Nigeria managing Ebola. And you also recall that even our own success had come from previous experience, and experience, they say, is the best teacher. We have had experience with Lassa fever, which we contained. We've also had challenges with polio, which we have contained, and it went a long way in helping our Center for Disease Control to manage Ebola. And so what they require is probably the kind of technical know-how, medical assistance, and know-how about how Liberia and Sierra Leone should go about it, because the situation is quite alarming. As at this weekend, there are so far about 5,343 incidences of Ebola, and deaths in West Africa are about 3,800. Liberia alone recorded about 150 deaths within the period of 2 days. And unfortunately, the Deputy Health Minister there, Bernice Dan, has placed herself in quarantine. Why? Because one of her assistants succumbed to Ebola and died. And because of that, she quickly went into quarantine and will be there for the 21-day incubation period. But the good news coming along with that is that the World Health Organization has also clarified that Nigeria will soon come out as one of the polio endemic countries, having sustained 95% prevention of Ebola between 2013 and 2014. Polio between 2013 and 2014. Related to Ebola is the encouraging news about the football match that happened on Saturday. Our under-17 football national team, the Golden Eagles, bequeathed their reputation quite patriotically. You will recall that about 2 weeks ago, to play a first leg match, they had to go to Togo in trying to fly to Libreville, Gabon. But because Gabon had placed embargo on planes from Nigeria, the boys could not fly there. They even boarded the plane in Togo. They were deboarded, and they had to almost go to Libreville by road. And while the match was going on, they were taunting the Nigerian players as Nigeria Ebola, Nigeria Ebola. As luck would have it, 2 weeks later, that was on Saturday, they came for the second match in Calabar.
Second, yes.
Yes, and the under-17 requited themselves as the world champions. Not only did they defeat Gabon, they scored and spelled Gabon, G-A-B-O-N, and defeated them 5-0. I think they will learn their lesson never to turn. You don't dare Nigeria.
Yes, and we are Nigeria is Ebola free.
There's a resilience of Nigerians.
Yes.
Comes up mostly when you dare, and they that learn their lesson that you don't dare Nigeria. Yeah. Well, that is a prelude for the under-17 championship coming up in February and March in Niger. The semi-finalists there will qualify to play for the under-17 coming up in Chile.
Okay, just a final,
yes.
The two papers I have, Mr. Toyebe. I have the New Telegraph, and the New Telegraph has stories on this front page. Buhari's game plan, supporters intensify push for APC consensus candidacy. The details are on page 5. And just above that, slightly above that, 2015, FG suspends talks on Shell, others all lease renewal. Details, you can find that on page 4. And below that, picture story, Jonathan, why Nigeria has not defeated terrorism, nation's woes self-inflicted, coming from Orisha Jafo. And the Leadership newspaper also leads with another story, a different story, death row soldiers still in underground cells. Details are on page 6. And it's writing with, we must unite to defeat Boko Haram, Jonathan, and fighter jet still missing. That's the lead story on the front page of Leadership. Now, just above the masthead, below the masthead, Ebola. WHO asks Nigeria to provide expertise in West Africa. That's the one we've just reviewed, Mr. Toyebe and Kingsley just talked about. And coming down, Dangote projects continent's potential with Marketplace Africa. And there are other stories on the inside page. I think that's all I have. And Kingsley is drawing the attention, Mr. Toyebe, your attention to the NJC profile sheet.
The conflict in the conflict or the crisis in Ekiti.
Justice A.S. Daramola of Ekiti State has made a formal report, as reported by the papers, to the CJ and Chief Justice of Nigeria about the intrusion into the judiciary and the desecration of the Temple of Justice. For now, there were heightened tension in Ekiti, which led to the governor declaring curfew between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
That's Dimkas.
7 p.m. and 7 a.m. But the commissioner of police in Ekiti State has also warned, and the soldiers are also there and on ground, and I think calm is returning to Ekiti. But caution must be made because it is the elements within the National Union of Road Transport Workers Union and Road Transport RTEAN. This is where the crisis is brewing, and apparently it's related to the elections. You recall that such instances have also happened in Ibadan, where you have National Union of Road Transport Workers Union going after each other and emerged in politics. And so the earlier we distance this toggery away from politics, the safer it will be for our nation. The other last story that I think I want to draw
just on
quick attention
the crisis in the road transport sector. Usually in your state, I think they have two strong men there.
Yes.
One of them is called Tokyo. The other is also called Auxiliary.
Yes.
So I think those are the conflicts.
Yes, one of them was even killed, and just as it happened in Ekiti now, they've killed one Adiri.
Precisely. And who is said to be a supporter of Fayose. Yes. It's a fairly complicated story. Maybe we'll have to take a look at that sometime, Claire.
All right.
But finally, something that relates to you and I as journalists. You recall that there is unfortunate collapse of the story building at synagogue, and there are reports that because money was given and somehow journalists were prevailed upon, what are you going to report? They say, we are going to report what you said. And therefore, you will see that in the media, what was highlighted was the fact that there was an aircraft hovering and that there is a Boko Haram threat. And some journalist who was courageous is in fact come under fire because he now revealed that money was given, and therefore the journalists overlooked the fact that a 2-story building was illegally upgraded into a 6-story building. Not only that, that for a period of about 3 days, rescue workers were obstructed from getting into the premises. And not only that, even journalists who went there to go and cover the story were harassed.
Attacked.
And not only that, the worst thing is that this is becoming a recurring decimal. And the gentleman cited an incident that during an election in one of the southwest states, after a governor won and he wanted to give money of appreciation, journalists were at each other's throat fighting. And so this element of what is called brown envelope, what sometimes is referred to as qua, is undermining our professional integrity, is undermining the ethics of the profession. And when it is raised, some will say that we are not paid, we are owed salaries several months, and you that is not taking it is because you don't have school fees to pay and you don't have a wife to feed. So these are the incidences that is undermining. And the danger here is this. One will expect that the senior elite of the profession, the editors, will call the journalists to order. And they also added that sometimes, it is alleged, some of the editors get theirs through bank transfer. So unless we get our acts together, who will watch over the watchdog? If the watchdog is supposed to ensure that those in governance are accountable to people and hold the people up to the ethics of society, they themselves are abandoning the ethics of their profession.
Very disturbing development.
Yes, I think that's
indeed very, very disturbing. Kingsley.
Yeah, but it's quite disturbing.
It's an issue that we really, have to look at, critically, because it also has a moral background, a moral, side to all these the stories. And again, you talked about wages and all that. Well, it's something that those, of course, Mr. Atoyebe, you were the executive secretary of the Nigerian Press Council. You know all this. You also have a responsibility. The council also has a responsibility. The NUJ has a responsibility, and of course the Guild of Editors, has a responsibility. Newspaper proprietors.
Yeah, it's very significant.
It's a collective failure.
It's a topic that we'll have to deal with probably bit by bit in the course of the program, while we're reviewing papers on a day-to-day basis, depending on the matters that arise therefrom.
We must have the courage to remove the speck in our eye, so that we can remove the log in the eyes of others. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bayo Atoyebe, would like to thank you for joining us today on the newspaper review segment of Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll commence our conversation on leadership and national development.
A new day is almost a clean slate. The plethora of opportunities offered. The chance to choose.
Investing in agriculture is the key.
Set your agenda. Begin your day. Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for joining us. Let's kick off with our main conversation this morning, and it's on political leadership. Of course, you know that every nation has a system of recognizing and rewarding outstanding contributions and achievements. Now, over the years, the Nigerian government instituted several categories of honors and awards to confer on Nigerians who have distinguished themselves in various fields of endeavor. Now, this year, 305 Nigerians made the list of National Honors Award. And Kingsley, what this means for the recipients, it's of course, it confers on them greater responsibility, greater challenge, and of course, a lot of expectations from Nigerians in terms of
exemplary conduct.
Exemplary conduct, in terms of service to their fatherland and all that.
In whatever spheres they are operating, that's the key. That's the key challenge, as it were, or the key requirement or the key demand that an honor like this places on you.
Yes, and of course, as we said earlier, despite this honor today, the question that many have asked is, how have Nigerians, of course, with political positions of political leadership, affected the common man here in Nigeria, of course, since independence? And that's the basis for Ann Jibunot's report on, of course, the honors and issue of leadership in Nigeria. And take it from here.
The National Honours was instituted by the National Honours Act No. 5 of 1964 during the First Republic to honour Nigerians from all walks of life who have rendered special and outstanding services in their various calling to benefit and progress Nigeria. The award is open to only citizens of Nigeria, but honorary awards can be conferred on non-citizens. Recipients are expected to conduct themselves as role models. This year, 305 Nigerians are receiving the award. Among this year's recipients are a cook, a traffic warden and a taxi driver. Recipients of the National Honours were selected for their impeccable character, high moral standards and outstanding leadership qualities. Over the years, experts have stressed that leadership in all spheres of life is exemplified by character and shared values which ignite a process of social influence in which a person can enlist the aid and support of people in the accomplishment of a common desire. They add that the political history of Nigeria, if chronicled, will reveal political leaders who were seen as sources of inspiration and aspiration. In the past, political leaders were viewed as teachers. This developed a wave of political consciousness among the diverse ethnic groups in the country. Nigerians were awakened by the charisma and philosophy of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Alhaji Tafawa Balewa, Aminu Kanu, and many others.
Our founding fathers, our leaders in the First Republic, laid very sound foundation for Nigeria politically.
There have been calls on political office holders to seek office with agenda to serve and meet the aspirations of the people.
You as a leader, you have really to put the overall interest of your people. They have nowhere to look to. They are always looking towards you. So it's a lot of responsibility the good Lord has bestowed on any leader. And I would like and I would want to believe that no leader would like to betray that trust imposed on him by destiny.
Experts emphasize that public office holders must bridge the disconnect between leadership and followership, adding that this disconnect requires the full participation of followers who must seek political education so as to contribute meaningfully to governance.
Okay, thank you very much there, Anne, for that background. Just to inform our viewers that we'll be having a discussion on this program with guests right with us here in the Abuja studios of the NTA, and also we'll be taking a very important Nigerian who has a lot to do with leadership from our Benin Network Center. But in the meantime, right here with us in the Abuja headquarters studio is Dr. Shetima Mustafa. He's been a minister in both the civilian and military administrations. He has had portfolios in agriculture, in defense and interior. Dr. Shetima Mustafa, I'd like to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
All right, the question of leadership is a recurrent one on account of, as it were, the perennial challenges of national development that we continue to face. What, in your opinion, is the missing link in our leadership equation?
Thank you. Let me try to distinguish between my understanding of what is leadership and what is a leader or the leader. Now, leadership, like good governance, can be likened to a relay race. Now, in a relay race, 3 or 4 people run the bit. So no matter how hard the first runner is, if the last runner is lousy, you can't win. If the last runner is the best in the world, if the earlier runners are lousy, you can't win. So it has to be a team work. Now, the reason why some of the advanced countries in the world succeed is because they take their leadership like a single thread. Now, by single thread, I mean that you do your bit, you leave, the guy coming after you will do his bit, but relevant to, and in addition to, what you left behind. The new one, once the new one comes and says, this one is useless, go. No yesterday, today is the day. He goes, the one who comes tomorrow will also say, yesterday was bad, today is also bad, now my own be good. Now, This is the problem we are facing in most of the underdeveloped world. People see leadership from the point of view of the first person singular. I, me, mine. Never saw it from the point of view of we, ours. And that's the difference. It makes a whole lot of difference, because when you talk of development, development is a continuum. I may start a building like this. I may not have the privilege of finishing it. Why can't you come and finish it if you come after me? Why do you want to demolish this or ignore this to go and start your own? You're wasting resources, wasting time, wasting energy, and wasting everything. So leadership should be looked at from a very comprehensive point of view. And I think in our case, for instance, as a nation, we just have to come with a basic national minimum below which no leader should be allowed to fall. If any leader comes, and this is why now I'm talking about a leader or the leader. If anybody comes as a leader and says, I'm not going to continue what was there, then we, as people of this country, will say, that is not what we want. Because development is a continuum. You must carry over and do what is good for this country. But it is we who will do that.
Okay, let me ask one very important question. With a country like Nigeria, for a country like Nigeria with diversity, that of course has a ethnic tribes, different languages and all that, how easy is it to provide a leadership, quality leadership for such a people, for such country? Is it easy? Is it an easy thing to do?
Well, you have said it all, because how easy is it to provide quality leadership? Now, that word quality, I think, solves the problem. If you know that that leader has the required quality, has the charisma, has the foresight, could stand up anywhere, defend your interest, promote your interest, I mean, as a follower, you have no other option but to follow him. But if you know your leader will tomorrow look at you in the face and say, I don't like you because you are not following my tribe, you are not following my religion, you are not doing this, because of the same thing that I said, like I, personalizes everything, then I cannot have confidence in him. But so long as somebody will stand up and defend what is basically in everybody's interest. Who doesn't eat food, for instance? Who doesn't want his child to go to school? Who doesn't want to see, he doesn't want to visit a doctor when he's sick? Now, if these basic things are there, and you know that your leader can provide this kind of thing to you, can't you go to sleep?
You know what I'm asking? Nigeria is a country with so many, I don't think that's a problem. Exactly. You don't think it's a problem?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Once you get a quality leadership, you get a charismatic leadership. Look, in the pre-independence days, all these empires, Kano, Borno, Caliphate, Benin Empire, and so on, I don't think all the people living in those empires were all one tribe, or they were all, homogeneous. But it is the quality of the leadership then that brought a big empires like Kano, Borno under one rule.
Okay, right here we have, as we said, discussing with us in the Abuja studios here, Dr. Shettima Mustapha. But at the Benin Network Center, we also have a very important Nigerian who's been in position of leadership. Of course, you can recognize him on the screen there. I'm here speaking of Dr. Samuel Osaibovo Ogbemudia, who retired as a brigadier general. He was the military governor of the Midwest state from 1967 until 1975. And also he won election during the Second Republic as governor, civilian governor of the then Bendet state from, of course, October the 1st to December 31st when that republic was overthrown. Dr. Samuel Ogbemudia, I would like to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Well, of course, Dr. Gwemudia, you're well over 80 now. We'd like to thank you for taking our time to come to our Benin Network Center. We're here discussing the issue of quality leadership and national development. During your time, there was no question about it that you were an exemplar. The story of your success remains a benchmark for leadership. What happened? How come we couldn't sustain such quality of leadership over the years?
Well, thank you first of all for remembering that I had that quality of leadership. But it is important to establish quality of leadership through the objective that whoever establishes it wants to achieve. If you want to appoint a headmaster and the headmaster to make a school better than it was, then it is a different approach. If it's a football captain, it's a different approach. So our type of leadership at the time was to provide for Nigerians what Nigerians would like to have to give them a happy future. Today, they have what is perhaps referred to as electioneering leadership. Election, if it can get on top of a soapbox and sing beautifully, telling stories about what he will do and what he cannot do, as a different leadership. So the head of state or the president owe it a duty to the people of Nigeria to ensure that his own points of entry, all those things he promised to do, that he ensures that every governor, every local government chairman, every councillor, minister, state commissioners, they carry out those responsibilities. It is not for him to walk into the field and start dribbling or directing each commissioner, each minister, but there is a provision for that, which is you have 1, 2, 3, go and see that they are carried out. And those people will carry out their responsibility. And there must be a monitoring group. Over and above that is the issue of the society. The society have to also keep a watching look at these people, because the president is not able alone to carry out the responsibility. In the military era, there was what you call Supreme Military Council, and the secretary to that council are people versed in taking notes of decisions reached. And beyond that is the Supreme Headquarters, who acts not only as arbiter of any problem arising from between governors and the state, but also to ensure that the responsibilities are carried out according to the instruction. So that is why many people say that the military government is nearer or more of a unitary form of government than a government in the civilian system. You will find that nobody in the military questions the upper echelon of what they do. While in the civil, You can question your president and say, why do you want me to do this? It is unconstitutional. So that is the difference.
Okay, Pa Gbamudia, I most humbly welcome you to our program. In our climb, we hardly, sit or stand to talk to octogenarians like you. So please accept my humility in calling you. You have been a military governor as well as a civilian governor, so you should know what we're talking about. When we talk about quality leadership, we always look back to the good old days, the founding fathers, the dream of the founding fathers, and some would say as encapsulated in the old national anthem. Here we're looking at building a nation of brotherhood, a nation where peace and justice reign, a nation where no one is oppressed, and of course where truth, justice, reigns. Now, these are the ideals that our past leaders, sought. Would you say, looking down, would you say present political leaders have toed the line, or has there been a disconnect?
Well, it is a different setting entirely. The man at the top and civilian dispensation hasn't got the same training as the other people over whom he is presiding. For example, a general who is the commander of a unit or a division, and a soldier who is going to be a general tomorrow is going to pass through what the general before him has passed through, and is going to learn the same lesson. And he will also see and experience the way they overcome certain challenges. In the civil, for example, you appoint a commissioner who perhaps left school only 5 years earlier and has never passed through the same challenges and is allowed to take a decision on his own. He's likely to make more mistakes than a soldier who, after passing through his either the Defense Academy or other officer training institution, solving the same problem. So my view is that it is important that everybody that is going to hold a position of responsibility in government to achieve the the objective of his boss must sit down with his boss sometimes to discuss the objective, the method of approach, and the method of achieving the objective, without which he's not likely to benefit anything from his boss. And that is to say that his boss, too, is of above average intelligence.
Well, Dr. Gbamudia, we'll return to you briefly, but I just want to touch on 2 key points that our guest with us here in Abuja raised. And those 2 points relate first to the recruitment process for leadership, and also the issue of continuity. And he demonstrated that or explained that by saying that leadership in Nigeria relates to the first person singular, I. And when another person comes, he or she shuns aside whatever went on before. In terms of recruitment into leadership positions in Nigeria, what do you think is missing? Yes, you've talked about the issue of electioneering leadership, and yet, let's say, even at the local government level, you find, I'm saying this with due respect to members of AGON, you find that persons who, in fact, should not even be in charge of the smallest unit of administration are put in charge of a critical segment of governance. What do you think is wrong with our recruitment process, and how do we also ensure continuity?
I really don't understand this question well, but the word recruitment has sort of put in a plug so that you're trying to say that the people who are in government or who are being recruited to perform certain functions are being recruited to perform that function. But if that is the case, then there is a loophole because the individual has not been given training. You appoint a man today, for example, as a commissioner of police. Well, before he became commissioner, he has been in touch with that position through acting or seeing his next door neighbor performing that function. But in many other cases, they do not have that opportunity. You appoint a man as a permanent secretary from the position of a principal of a school, principal of a college, from general managership of whatever. And the first time he performs the function is the day he is sworn in. Maybe between you, two of you, you have been able to brief him to the extent that he understands what his duty is. But bear in mind that you yourself, you are not a novice like himself. There's nothing you can tell him, except that he will say, I have been on this job for the past 5 years. But being on the job for 5 years is not the same as performing the job in 5 years. So there is always a need to brief them, brief the individual concerned. Don't just take him and say, oh yes, he has a degree in agriculture, therefore come and be permanent secretary of agriculture. That won't be right, because the questions he answered in his final degree has nothing to do with being a permanent secretary of agriculture. And passing through the process over the years is also not the same. But you must sit him down. I want the food in this state or this country to improve by 10% next year. Now work out how much it will cost you to achieve that. Next year, I want you to improve rice, yam, potato, whatever. Gradually, he will get used to it and become a champion. The purpose of the degree is to set a standard, to lay a foundation stone. I had worked with somebody who said he had a degree in raising fund. And we agreed with him to raise funds for us to develop. What to develop, we didn't tell him. And he didn't ask. The next thing we saw was a banner, invest in XYZ, because he was looking forward to the 20% that he will get. So he first of all had to push forward those things that will interest people. No, that's not how to raise leadership, how to get people to help. You're not helping him, and he's not helping you, he's killing you. But if you tell him, I want 10 naira, and I want it within 3 weeks, if he can do it, he will tell you, yes, sir, I can do this, but I won't be able to reach the 10 naira you want. I can get you 5, 7.
Okay, Dr. Gbamudia, you've just raised issues of qualities, attributes, of course, of those that we elevate to leadership position. And Dr. Shettima Mustapha, these are very important things that we must note. And we've had quality leaders in the past. We talk about late Tafawa Balewa, we talk about Nnamdi Azikiwe, of course, we talk about Obafemi Awolowo. These were leaders who have given this country, or who gave this country a direction. Now, what are those qualities that they possess that we need to have today, that our political leaders today are lacking?
Okay, let me quickly take this opportunity to congratulate Babagwe Media for reaching this age and for giving us this wisdom. I think he has touched on the fundamental. Probably what I need to do is only to expand on what he said. Now, this recruitment process is so fundamental in political development, not only political, but other things. Now, the mistake we are making in this country is that we think leadership can be picked on the roadside. Please pardon me for using that strong phrase, but I think we think that leadership can be picked on the street. Why I'm saying this is, think of carpentry, blacksmithery, tailoring, whatever. Every profession has a procedure for training, recruitment, and training. So if you find that this is a good carpenter who did this ceiling very well, he must have started somewhere, he must have followed someone, he must have been taught by someone, he must have swallowed a lot of bitter pills to be able to be perfect. In Nigeria, unfortunately, and I have every reason to say that, we think that you can finish secondary school yesterday, today you will carry your bag and want to become a senator or a governor. It does not work that way. Politics is like any other profession that you must learn. Now, this teaching-learning situation that we have not developed or we have refused to promote is the problem. Those elders that you mentioned, they had their own system. Let me tell you this. During the time when Abubakar and Sardauna, the Azikiwe and so on were at the top of affairs, they were only in their 50s, even though their background, their training was, it made them look like they are in the 70s and 80s. But they had this solid background. But not only that, think of those people who worked with them, people like M.T. Mbu. M.T. Mbu was 28 years old when he was made a minister. Alaji Waziri Ibrahim, Alaji Shehu Shagari, they were in their 30s. Only people like Ribadu and so on were probably 40s, 50s, and so on. So there was that range of people, the elderly, the middle, and the starters. Now, if people like M.T. Mbu and Waziri Ibrahim had worked with people like Sardauna and Zig for 5, 6 years, and on their own became leaders, they have been through a process. But what if somebody who is probably working in a hotel or somewhere in the United States or in the UK or something, maybe God was so kind to him, he gave him a lot of money and he came here, and suddenly he found himself up there. Now, like Babagwe Media is saying, that this man cannot perform like the man who started from ABCD and rose. Now, let me also give you another example. Today we freely come out and say, oh, the Sardauna did this, Zig, Awolowo this, Dr. Azikiwe did this, and so on and so forth. Okay, most of these people who are now saying this are people who probably never saw these people in real action. So the question of learning directly from them did not arise. Now, there are some people in the middle range, like people of my age and so on, who had actually had the privilege of working with either the Sardauna or Azikiwe or Awolowo and so on and so on. So they must have learned from these people. Now, what stops the younger man coming up from saying, hey, Mustafa, you were able to do this and that, how do we go about it? But a lot of the younger people today think that people of my generation are out, let alone those.
Well, Dr. Shatima Mustafa, there's a question. I mean, Dr. Gbamudia said that I used the word recruitment.
Yeah.
I used that as a synonym for selection, for appointment, for election. Otherwise, that was the sense in which I used that phrase. But it responded very well, as you have also acknowledged. We're talking about continuity. I think it's a question that I'll pose to Dr. Gbamudia. We do not want to go back to the past, but there are some persons who hold the views very strongly that the linkages that you are describing now, those linkages were broken as a result of the interregnum of military administration. But now, 15 years on, we've been in the democracy, the Fourth Republic. How do we ensure continuity so that the I becomes a we? Whose responsibility is it to ensure continuity? Is it that of the followership, or is it that, let's say, another political party comes on now and it says, look, I'm not interested in agriculture, I am not interested, this is what I want to do. Whose responsibility is it to ensure continuity, that the people's interest is always on the front burner?
No, you see, in fairness to the generation of Gbamudias, I think they had provided the leadership at the crucial moment when they came to power. Like I said, there was this mix of the military, the civilian, the elderly, the young, and so on and so on. So they carried us along. But like most things, as time goes on, it's like a car. Unless you keep maintaining it, it goes down. Now, if we had maintained this interaction, teaching-learning situation, after General Gawal, after the regime has gone, Murtala came, and then, of course, Obasanjo, we came into the Second Republic. If you notice, even during the Second Republic, there was this teaching, learning, the bond was not broken totally.
That's true.
But after the Second Republic, all sorts of things started happening. All sorts of things. And then that is why the break came. And that's why I was emphasizing, I say, as a nation, I'm not talking about as PDP or as APP or SCAPC or whatever. No. As Nigerian nation, what do we want? What is our basic minimum?
That's right.
That is the issue. For instance, today, in the United Kingdom, yes, Labour, Conservatives, middle of the roaders, whatever. In the United States, which we are copying, Democrats, Republicans, middle of the roaders, and so on and so forth. But you dare not fall below that minimum what they consider as basic for America or for England. Now, this is the point I am making. In this country, whether we like it or not, sooner or later, unless we draw that minimum and say, look, you can be APC, you can be PDP, you can be XYZ, this is what we Nigerians and Nigeria as a nation want. So build your program over and above that, but don't fall below that. And the recruitment issue is that we have to develop criteria for our leaders. I mean, if you are going to be, for instance, he mentioned about local government. If I were to be asked to draw up qualification for local government chairman, I would set that qualification, if not higher, at least I would set it equal to the governor, because this is the guy who is the first port of call. So we don't have that criteria in this country. Probably what we now have is you look at a person, probably one eye is looking at his face, another eye is looking at his pocket. And that's what's called our politics. And so long as we do not shift from this issue of sycophancy, hypocrisy, this and that, we know that this is not right, but we'll go ahead and say it is right. So that's what I'm emphasizing. As a nation, as Nigerians, we need to do that, or we'll continue to suffer.
All right, we just go over to Dr. Gbamudia in our Benin Network Center. Dr. Gbamudia, growing up, I recall one of the very many good things that have been credited to you, the Samuel Ogbomedia Stadium in Benin. It's one of the many laudable projects that, of course, the people of Edo State remember you for. And there's so many others I can't recall. I know Kingsley here has a list of so many things. And today, a statue has been erected in your honor in Edo State, of course, with Edo people thanking you for the benefit. Now, these are the new things that are expected of a leader, of a quality leader, you know, bringing in new things, new development. How do you assess, in view of that, how do you assess our leaders? What should be their responsibilities? What should they be doing?
First of all, allow me to complete what I was saying. I was about to start talking about continuity. If I could quickly go over that. In political setup, continuity is only possible if the central body, executive, takes on that responsibility. No governor will take over continuity from his predecessor. The purpose of continuity is to ensure that a good job that has started should be completed. In the case of politics, it is important that the party itself adopt continuity as a major program of its existence. Otherwise, any new governor coming in will ask, what do I do to become popular? All they want to be is to be popular. It cannot be, because if you want to be popular, he must abandon what his colleagues did for him to start a new one for himself. That's that. Now, on the present question, the party, now we're talking about politics, because unless it is the political party is closely knitted and with a command that can intervene at various stages, it's not possible for us to achieve that. So I would suggest that the new generation of leaders must learn from the older one what they intend or what they are doing, the result of what they are doing. If the result is not achievable, they must grab it in time to discontinue it. Our time was slightly different because at the supreme headquarters of the army, everybody or the chief of general staff take a good look at the task of every governor and advise them what to do if they are derailing. In the civil, you don't have equivalent of a chief of general staff. What you have is the secretary to the government. The secretary to the government cannot do certain things because of the constitutional framework. I have had a situation where a colleague wrote a long letter to the head of state asking the head of state to give him more power so that he can perform certain functions. And he was told that he was a governor and he has the authority to give his state the best leadership available. So in the case of civil, you can disobey your head of state, especially if you do not belong to the same party. And it cannot take you to court or sack you, apart from what we now see call impeachment. And we know how impeachment come about. So the interest of the state, of the local government, and of the federation takes precedence over every other consideration.
Dr. Babuja, I would like to, if we have sufficient time, to come back again to the question of achieving coherence in national development. That's where ensuring proper linkages between the federal and the state governments. But I would like you to take a look one more time, because Claire was talking about the Ogbe Stadium as one of your landmark achievements. Of course, Claire, the Ogbe Stadium was perhaps just one of several aspects that dealt with sports policy. And there was also visioning during your time, I recall that, for infrastructure. There was also visioning for education. There was also visioning for, you established University of Benin, which was an IMT, and some other details that I need not go into now. What is the role of visioning at various levels of governance, at various levels of leadership, if you like?
Yeah, my feeling very often is that we give certain issues labels that doesn't belong to them. When you talk about education, education grew from primary to the university and perhaps more. When you talk of road, it grew from path to well-built road. But every time we pick up a language, we use the word challenge, either to beautify it or to do something else. But I think we must call a spade a spade. Now, having said that, it is true that the Midwest government built a university. But the reason for building the university is different from the reason for building the University of Lagos, the University of Calabar. So it is this difference that is responsible for the attitude of the people that come out to do it. If we talk about sports, the attitude of the people is different at various stages. And that is how we go about daily thinking of how we should get certain things done. I have heard a pressman saying, oh, because of so and so challenge, I cannot produce the quality of paper you want. Now, when he then explained what that challenge is, you find it different. You find that they want to show civilization in the use of words. Military cannot tell you that hill, go there and expel. Instead of expelling the people there, they tell you something. They only tell you that hill, go and remove all the obstacles there. They may be human beings, they may be something else. And they show you how to do it. We once appointed a consultant to look into our economy and advised what to do. And the man said, establish a dynamic economy and things will move. If the man knows the ingredients of the dynamic economy, he will not have called the consultant. He should be told, these are the ingredients of the dynamism that we expect you to employ into the problem of your economy.
Very well. We are here discussing with Dr. Samuel Ogbemudia from the Benin Network Center, and also with us here in Abuja, Dr. Shetima Mustapha. Issue of leadership on the occasion of Nigeria's 54th independence anniversary. We'll take a break now by going over to the newsroom and joining Laure Bala Hassan for the news bulletin. But that will be after the break, before we go over to Laure.
Nigeria. We the people decree that the power of evil secrecy shall fail.
All Nigerians should understand that a divided Nigeria can only mean catastrophic consequences for the entire black race.
We all African countries count on you, and you are our beacon of hope.
That when Nigeria sneezes, all of us will catch cold.
All of us who look to Nigeria for lessons and inspiration never cease to thank God for this wonderful gift to Africa.
Nigeria enjoys the respect, the admiration, the friendship, and the hope of an entire continent.
The powerhouse of Africa.
Nigeria.
Unite and build Nigeria.
God bless Nigeria.
A message from protectors of Nigerian posterity.
Running on the network service of the NTA from the stable of the NTA Educational Television this quarter, a wide variety of educational programs. Fambus, Tuesdays 5:30 p.m. It is fun-filled and educative for children ages 5 to 11. Work It Out, Saturdays 9 a.m. Work It Out is a mathematics quiz program for students of junior secondary schools. Take a Step, Tuesdays 6 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 10 a.m. Take a Step is a general purpose quiz program for students in senior secondary schools. Young Inventors, join the Young Inventors every Mondays at 5:30 p.m. Young Inventors encourages and celebrates creativity, ingenuity, and originality in children and young adults. It's a bouquet of active participation, learning, and being educated in an interesting way.
There is an Ebola virus epidemic in some West African countries. The Nigerian government wants you to be aware and watch out against the spread of Ebola in your community. Help keep our country safe. Refer anybody coming into Nigeria from any other West African country to a hospital for proper medical screening. And watch out for severe cases of fever, headaches, diarrhea, chest and abdominal pain, sore cough, red eyes, and bleeding from the eyes, ears, and nose. Protect yourself. Wash your hands regularly with soap and sanitizer. Avoid contact with the blood, urine, feces, or saliva of animals like bats, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, or infected persons. The Ebola virus is deadly. Don't catch it. Don't spread it. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
Okay, this is Good Morning Nigeria, coming to you live on the network service of the NTA. We're skipping the summary of the news in order to maximize the time with our two guests we're having in Benin and also the guest with us here in the Abuja studios. I'd like to come to Dr. Shetima Mustapha. I posed a question to our other guest at the Benin Network Center, Dr. Samuel Ogbemudia, about visioning. And of course, he has explained aspects of visioning. What's your take with regard to visioning? And implementation, execution, monitoring, and control at whatever level of political leadership is appropriate in this country.
Yeah, visioning is absolutely necessary. In fact, in life, whether in politics or you're in business, you have to have a mission. Now, your mission should be able to carry you to a vision, because you must have a vision before you develop your mission. Now, and this is the kind of thing I was trying to allude to earlier on. In terms of leadership, you have to have a vision towards which you pull your people. And once your people are convinced that the vision towards which you are pulling them is good, they'll follow you. If it is bad, they will not follow you. But the problem we have is that, for instance, let's talk about the parties. Every party should have a manifesto. That manifesto is the thing that the They had their vision, they described their roadmap and all that and so on. Now, since ideally it is on the basis of the manifesto they campaigned, and ideally, I'm emphasizing the word, it is on the basis of that manifesto that they were elected into office, so they had no other option but to religiously follow that manifesto. If they are going to change that manifesto, it means they have to go get back to the people to say, oh, the point we campaigned on which you elected us, we are now changing it. And you know that's not possible. So the question now is, you have to really filter your vision, make sure that, yes, it is something that is useful, excuse me, something that is acceptable, something that is obvious and convincing, so that you lead your people towards it. Now, this manifesto must be operative throughout, because what one observes, for instance, in our setup, even within the same regime, if you appoint, for instance, a minister today in a ministry, he will follow maybe certain programs. If within the same regime that minister goes and another minister comes, probably there's nothing that will guide him to say, look, this is the manifesto of the party, you dare not, you can innovate, but you cannot change. Now, these are the kind of things that you have to have in your vision, you have to develop mission for, and so on and so forth. But probably in this country, what we take a manifesto only for the purpose of campaign. Probably after the campaign, you ask some of the executives, what is the content of your manifesto? They may probably not be able to tell you. I'm sorry I'm using these strong words, but I've been in politics long enough to know that. So visioning is important. You can't go through life without some sort of vision, some kind of mission. Now, but that vision, again, it has to come back to this question of, is it I, is it we, is it mine, or is it ours? If the vision is ours, I am committed to it. If it is your vision to enable you to win second term, that one is your business. So we have to look at it from that angle.
Do the followership have a role, in of course, bringing about a quality leadership that we all desire? What is the role that the followership ought to play in all of this?
Yes, they did, because in the past, for instance, during the First Republic or even Second Republic, various units at the lower level, they sit down, they map their own desires. It is they who will now tell the leaders, this is what we want to do, this is why we want to go, based on the manifesto or whatever is agreed. And that was the bottom-top approach. Even the Ward Fellow has a role in that. But over a period of time, we have converted that to top-bottom approach, and whatever our guy at the top says, oh, now be the rule. Today, you have no right, for instance, to open your eyes, like Dr. Bumida is saying, open your eyes, look at your governor and say, Your Excellency, this is not correct. That day, you are out. But I have served during the Second Republic as a commissioner in my state, and my permanent secretary I had a lot of respect for my permanent secretary. He would come and say, Honorable Sir, the rule or the government regulation ABC says this is not possible, this is possible, and so on. And I dare not say otherwise, because we were all guided by the rules and regulations. But like he was saying, today, a governor, with all due respect to governors, a governor, and I know there are cases where someone who is probably even lower than a principal of a secondary school was made permanent secretary overnight. What can you get from this kind of person? So that's why I kept saying that we have to develop that thing. Without it, we can't make progress.
Okay, Dr. Bamudia, please, a final question for you, in just the same way I asked Dr. Shatima Mustafa. How can the people be made, the followership be made to be responsive, to bring about quality leadership in this country going forward?
Thank you. First of all, we have to invite the services of the media, whether electronic or others. But the most important thing is that the person who is going to explain the very objective must himself understand and be a student of objective. Mission, vision, they are all in one word called objective. If they say, go to Lagos and bring me 10 exercise books, you have set everything together. It is the messenger who will now break it into little bits and get the number of people required to achieve that objective. All over the world, those who are experts in achieving objectives believe that a good manager must set objective for himself and decide who among his followers can achieve that objective. That is why it is said, when you set an objective, keep it constantly in view while negotiating diversionary obstacles. For every objective you set, there's a diversionary obstacle, either set up deliberately by those who sent you or other people who saw you embark on it. So I will say that we need to sit down with colleagues who also understand the purpose of mission and objective and mission, objective and vision, to debate it at every stage, especially if there are two important people going on a mission, or a mission is being given to someone that he must not fail. It must be discussed over and over. Many years back, somebody decided that he was going to invade another country. And on its own, he put together enough soldiers that could achieve that objective.
Well, unfortunately, we just lost our connection to the Benin Network Center, and would like to thank elder statesman, His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ogbemudia, former military governor, former civilian governor of the then Midwest and Bender State, for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria from the Benin Network Center. And also Dr. Shetima Mustafa, a minister in the military and civilian administrations. He held portfolios in agriculture, defense, and interior. I would like to thank you also for your contributions to our conversation this morning on getting the right political leadership for national development on the occasion of Nigeria's 54th independence anniversary. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We're on the home stretch of the program. We'll take a short break now.
It's cooking. Let's help her. Wait. My mama says before touching food, you should wash your hands with soap. But my hands are clean. Can't see germs, but they're everywhere. Look under special blue light. To protect against germs, I recommend regularly use soap. Safeguard removes millions of germs, and additionally, it inhibits regrowth of germs that might cause skin rashes for hours. That is why me, mommy, daddy, and my brother regularly use Safeguard.
Supported by the African Medical Association.
What's going on?
Bros, you don't know. Take one. It's like just introduce one sharp free data and smartphone offer.
Hello? Oh boy, they will knock you up to 1.5 gigabyte data when you buy the smartphone. Plus double any data when you load way past 200 MB for the next 12 months.
No waste time, oh. With Chikili money, you save it and enjoy sharp browsing with Techno Phantom Z, R7, and other special Techno phones them.
Etisalat, now you're talking. A new day is almost a clean slate. The plethora of opportunities offered. The chance to choose.
Investing in agriculture is the key.
Set your agenda. Begin your day. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, thank you for staying with us as we move on to sports. And Golden Eaglets of Nigeria are through to the next year's Africa Under-17 Championship in Niger Republic, just as the NFF gets set for the elective Congress tomorrow. Here is Musbah Dan Wahab with all the details and more in the world of sports.
All right, welcome. Let's talk sport now. Nigeria Under-17 team defeated Gabon Under-17 side 5-0 at the UJ Suena Stadium in Calabar to qualify in grand style for the next year's Africa Under-17 Championship slated for Niger Republic after a 6-2 aggregate scoreline over their opponents, a brace from Ebere Sinachi and Kainde Aide, plus a strike from Kelechi Nwakali, where all the Eaglets needed to avenge their 2-1 defeats in the first leg played in Libreville. And the Nigeria Football Federation NFF is getting set to hold its elective Congress tomorrow in Delta State. The electoral committee that will conduct the election into the NFF board had earlier released the names of eligible candidates for the election. 7 candidates are contesting for the presidential seats, and they are Taiwo Ogunjobi from Osun State, Abdullahi Abba, Kano State, Mike Ume, Anambra State, Amaju Pinnick, Delta State, Dominic Yofa, Benue State, Shehu Diko, Kaduna State, and Uchebula Amaze from Imo State. 4 candidates are in the race for the position of the first vice president, and Ibrahim Gusso from Zamfara State is the unopposed candidate for the chairman of chairmen. All right, let's go forward now. The 41st Berlin Marathon started on Sunday with 40,000 runners from 130 nations competing. Berlin's mayor fired the starter's gun to set the runners off in ideal marathon weather condition. Around 74,000 male and female runners had applied to take part in the sporting events, more than ever before, according to organizers who raffled off places for the first time. Kenyan Dennis Kimato smashed the marathon world record, winning the race in a time of 2 hours, 2 minutes and 57 seconds. The 30-year-old pre-race favorite broke away in a 7-man group, including fellow Kenyans Emmanuel Mutai and Godfrey Kamworo. After 20 kilometers on a sun-drenched and cool Berlin morning, Kimato then shook off Mutai with 4 kilometers remaining to become the first man to complete the race in less than 2 hours and 3 minutes to set the second consecutive world record in Berlin, considered the world's fastest marathon course.
I'm feeling good because I put the world record. Now I'm really happy.
To tennis now, Wimbledon champion Petra Vitova became the 4th player to qualify for the season-ending WTA finals in Singapore after beating Eugenie Bouchard 6-3, 6-4 to win the Wuhan Open in China on Saturday. The Czech Republic number 3 took an 80 minutes to tame a Canadian opponent and join Serena Williams, Maria Sharapova and Simon Halep, who have already booked their places in Singapore. About sports, the program continues very shortly.
Okay, on to the foreign scene now. Protesters in Hong Kong are being dispersed with tear gas. And this is making headlines around the world as Nnamdi Odupo tells us the story and more on the foreign scene.
Hello and welcome. Reports say tear gas was likely used to disperse protesters in Hong Kong during a huge confrontation between the police and the protesters. This occurred just after the city's leader announced that his government would launch a new round of consultations on electoral reforms shortly. Tens of thousands of protesters had marched on major city center highways in their tens of thousands on Sunday following a weekend of violent clashes between police and pro-democracy activists calling for greater freedoms. The use of tear gas, extremely rare in Hong Kong, came after repeated pepper spray charges by police with elements had failed to clear Alcott Road in the Admiralty district, sparking warnings that greater force would be used. A new report from Russia indicates that Moscow wants to improve ties with Washington and is not interested in what has been described as a continued sanctions war with the West. In an interview with Russia's Channel 5 TV, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said relations between both countries needed a reset 2.0, referring to a previous U.S. attempt to mend bilateral ties that had been undermined by a series of confrontations, most recently over Ukraine. He recalled the softening in relations championed by the administration of Barack Obama after years of challenging ties with George W. Bush. Shortly after Obama took office in 2009, his then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton presented Lavrov with a red reset button intended to signal a new start to relations that had been strained under Obama's predecessor, George W. Bush. And we heard that Air France pilots have decided to end a 2-week strike that has crippled the French airline. Air France had been locked in a dispute with pilots over plans to create a low-cost operation, triggering a walkout that has cost it up to 20 million euros, an equivalent of $25 million a day. Pilots have been trying to pressure Air France to offer the same contract to those flying on the proposed new Transavia unit as to its own pilots, a demand the airline has argued is incompatible with the low-cost model. The pilots decided to end the strike without reaching an agreement with the French airline, even though talks resumed with management on Saturday night. And finally, the bodies of 31 hikers have been found near the top of Japan's Mount Ontake a day after a sudden volcanic eruption. The hikers were reportedly not breathing and their hearts had stopped. The volcano, about 200 kilometers west of Tokyo, erupted without warning on Saturday, spraying ash and rocks. About 250 people were trapped on the slopes of the popular beauty spot, but most of them got down safely. The eruption forced many of those on the mountain to make emergency descent through clouds of volcanic ash and falling rocks. And that's it on the foreign scene. It's back to Kingsley and Claire.
All right, and back home here, stakeholders in Nollywood converged for the 11th edition of Abuja Film Festival with expressive showcase of the theme 100 Years of Nigeria's History in Retrospect. Now here is, of course, welcoming Ignatius Onkwo back on GMN. Ignatius has been away covering the, of course, concluded national conference. Ignatius, it's over to you.
Welcome to Arts and Entertainment and Good Morning Nigeria this beautiful morning. Our gist is coming from the 2014 Abuja International Film Festival. The festival, which took place at the Silverbird Galleria Abuja, attracted several top celebrities as it reaffirmed Nigeria as a powerhouse in filmmaking in Africa. Gufan Shaji was there live and brings us all the juicy stories on that festival.
It was an animated Wednesday night at the Silverbird Galleria Abuja as celebrities and actors graced the arena for the Abuja International Film Festival. The atmosphere portrayed a high spirit of an industry eager to move higher at the global film industry. It was the 11th Abuja International Film Festival, a platform to showcase Nigeria and Anglophone West African movies. About 200 films were submitted in this edition. The number of films submitted this year indicates that the film industry is growing from strength to strength. 55 cutting-edge films will be screened, 34 will be up for awards. Best Feature Nigerian Film, Best Documentary, Viewers' Choice Award and Best Directing are among the award categories. The Film Fiesta this year added more glamour to the event as 2 more categories have been added to the show. This time, music scenes and student films featured. The film festival is aimed at promoting the diverse nature of the Nigerian languages embedded in its rich culture. For Fidelis Duka, the founder of the festival, this year's edition as a retrospect is hinged on promotion of peace in Nigeria.
We felt also importantly that the issue of security and unity has to be done at this point in time because, of course, we're moving to the election year, which is also very critical.
Very remarkable at this edition is the fact that the last major film acted, directed and produced by Chinese screen icon Jackie Chan is featuring at this event.
Prophecy fulfilled that Nollywood is actually going to grow beyond the shores of Nigeria and take the art of filmmaking to the doorsteps of the international community of film. And this gives me great confidence, great assurance that we are on the right path.
For the organizers, the 2014 event is tagged celebrating 100 years of film in Nigeria.
And that's it on arts and entertainment. Have a pleasant day.
All right, thank you, Ignatius Nko, and welcome back. And of course, that's how we round up today's edition of the program. Good morning, Nigeria, and once again, congratulations to all recipients of the National Honors Award. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul-Razak. Bye for now.
My name is Kingsley Osadola. It's also been my pleasure having you tune in to us today on Good Morning Nigeria, which came to you live on the network service of the NTA. See you tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning.